Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening to you listening to us from the other side. Maritana King is my name, and you're welcome to a program in hour with Nangla, which seeks to celebrate all the efforts of champions, heroines, and heroes working around the prevention and response to gender-based violence in Africa. Today, I'm super excited as I have with me Dr. Beatrice Titanji, who's going to be our guest for today. So, before we get into the conversation, I would like her to introduce herself so we can know who she is and the work she does. So, over to you, Dr. Beatrice.
Thank you very much, Marita, for inviting me. As you rightly say, I am called Beatrice Titanji. I am a teacher by profession, and besides being a teacher, I am an activist, and I'm a woman empowerer, and I work with women and girls, and most recently with men as well, because I've come to realize that communities are both male and female, and when we leave the other one out, then the balancing is off the scale. I live in Buea. I work and live in Buea, Cameroon.
Right. Perfect. So, thank you very much, Doc, for this introduction. First off, what motivated you to get into this area of work? I know you've said aside being a teacher, you're an activist. So, how did this activism side of things come to display?
It started when I was quite young, and I didn't quite know what I was getting into, but I was passionate about helping people. And as a girl, I saw older women in my village come up with an idea of getting young girls who had been taken out of the village to do domestic servitude in big towns. And they would come back pregnant, suffering, and these older women created a kind of support for them. And they would get these young teenage mothers to learn trades and to establish as independent citizens. I was quite intrigued by this. And then I joined them and I started being very active and bringing them, and I had so many things to teach them. First of all, like doing just simple pastries in the village and in the places where I work, like in Yaoundé and then in Buea. And I saw that there was a great improvement. And that went on. And in 2015, by that time, we had built structures in the village where women would come for training. And I was already working, and we could put our little money together, and these structures came, our phone gave land, and so much was done on that hill. And as the days went by, to cut a long story short, we got to 2015 when we started hearing of trafficking. And trafficking in persons has been going on around the world, and we did not quite know what it was. Then when the State Department got to our institution and said Cameroonian girls had been found in Kuwait. At that time, I was working in Buea, and it was announced that those girls, most of them came from Buea. So the president of our group asked me to follow that up, which I did. And we had 9 girls repatriated to Cameroon. They were sent back. And I did a video. And with that video, we aired it on CRTV. And for the first time, human trafficking was accepted to be real. And the country started talking about it. And people started knowing about it. And that gave me a lot to talk about in the churches, in the schools, to groups of women, to be aware of who invited them where to do what. And I have since been working on it. And in 2019, I wrote and launched a book on human trafficking called Curbing Human Trafficking and Modern Day Slavery, Curbing the Tide of Human Trafficking and Modern Day Slavery. So it was launched at the Hilton Hotel, and we had a lot of support from Vital Voices. I was invited to the United States, and I got to learn a lot about human trafficking. And for the first time in my life, I started identifying with prostitutes. I got to understand why some young girls delve into prostitution. And I became now like their supporter, in the sense that for those I would talk to them and bring them out of it, and then find ways of making them have better livelihoods in their communities. That's how in 2019 I created the Women's Guild for Empowerment and Development. And the center is right here in Buea, where I do services like advocacy, education, empowerment, rehabilitation, especially the IDPs. When the crisis broke out, so many IDPs were coming into Buea, and there was a need to support them. And the trafficking, the rate of human trafficking rose so much because I could find so many more of them. So it has not been an easy work, and there are still so many of them. And even as we speak, young people are still getting frustrated and trying to run away because of the hard times. So this has been a brief of what brought me into this sphere of work, and which is ongoing.
Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing this. I mean, trafficking in persons is something which touches our hearts directly, because these are a group of persons who just think they're going out there in search for greener pastures without really knowing what lies ahead of them. And I mean, we hear all the time that women's voices are a very powerful tool. And I'm happy to see that you raised your voice. Um, I mean, against this ill that also has costed the lives of many. So this is also very interesting to know that you worked also towards meeting the needs of internally displaced persons, and that really takes me directly to the next question that seeks to know um, what is the work you've been doing? Can you tell us a little bit about the work you've been doing in the area of gender-based violence prevention in the Southwest, in the Northwest, or let's say generally where you work? So it may be good to know these interventions, prevention-wise and response-wise.
Already we were working on sensitizing women and girls on the negative aspects of gender-based violence. And we would have teenage mothers especially, and we would have married women who weren't very happily married. We had lots of forced marriages. So our work was to educate them on how to get about it. And we realized that in modern times, with competition and rivalry and polygamous families and so on, a lot of gender-based violence was cropping into families. And then many of them, uneducated or illiterates, would just walk into the marriages unknowing what to meet there. And this caused a lot of heartache. Many of them would be beaten and even killed. We see that the number of femicides has grown much in our community, which isn't really what we saw when we were growing up. And with the coming of the internet, social media, and so on, we get to know now how many more women have lost their lives through gender-based violence. And this has been our work, that we do a lot of education, sensitization, and we do this work through seminars, through workshops. And for the past few years, we've had 16 days of activism against gender-based violence. So within the 16 days now, we look at activities that can bring more awareness. Like this morning, our committee on the 16 days of activism were at the radio, trying to sensitize the people on what exactly should be done. And in one of the committees to which I belong, we are looking at the environment itself. At my center, I am planning to have a workshop to teach the women how to do some cooking, some cakes that they can sell with basic material around them. Bananas are common everywhere in Goya. So I'm going to teach them how to do banana cakes during the first week of December, when we are rounding off the 16 days of activism. That alone is fighting GBV, because part of GBV is poverty. When the woman doesn't have money and has to ask her husband for everything, the man gets fed up. And if he comes back from work, there's no food to eat, and you are asking for money for one or two things, then the violence comes in. So, but when she can afford, she can buy something and prepare a beautiful dish for her husband, the violence quells down. And nobody would even think that this is a woman who just learned how to do these cakes and now can sell and is now a banana cake specialist. So I'm going to use that. And on that same day, which is the International Day for AIDS sensitization, I'm inviting a medical doctor to talk to the women at my center about AIDS. So that's the way we find GBV at our own center. The little things we can do, we are not very financially strong, but we can do the little, using these international days to cause awareness, to educate the women, and to empower them financially. A financially stable woman is usually far removed from gender-based violence. And I've come to realize that for those who have learned how to do something, how to earn a little more money, their lives are better. And they escape the violence that many of their men would inflict on them. And besides that, I have formed a group of the husbands of these women I work with, where I am the only female. So I come there and listen to them and ask them to table their complaints, if any, so that we discuss it here and we build the homes to avoid gender-based violence. So
Yeah, yeah. That's great work you're doing there. The no intervention is ever really small. First off, economic empowerment of women is never really a cheap activity to do. For example, you need to train these women. You need materials. You need resources to purchase the materials. You need to to afford their transportation. You need to be able to help them get transportation to and from the center, and many other times to provide them with startup capital. It's never really easy buying startup kits because it's never sufficient to just say we've trained XYZ number of women who are survivors of gender-based violence or those who are at risk of gender-based violence. It just suffices that we train and give them startup kits so that they can be able to kick up with their businesses right after. So it's never really a small intervention. Doing referrals is also not easy to do. It's also a very key and central activity in the area of gender-based violence, and something which you also highlighted, awareness for gender-based violence prevention. That's a big activity. Be it on the radio, be it in the community, that's a big activity, which many times we get to undermine. And something I pick from you is the fact that you do not just work with women, but you also work with men, and you justify that by talking about the group of husbands of the women you work with. In Senegal, they have something which I'll translate to English to mean a school of husbands. So when you said that, that came to my mind quickly. It's also a school where um, men are taught how to be responsible husbands alongside many other aspects. And I know that you were one of the people who championed he for she campaigns when I think they started somewhere in 2016, 2017. So
Mhm.
this is a lot of work being done, and this goes with the changing trends as well, where our information, education, and communication materials around gender-based violence prevention are being reshaped to not just paint men as the perpetrators, but also as allies and also activists for the right of women and girls. And some time back, we were working on a project that seeks to convert perpetrators to activists.
The
So it's not
activists,
just,
yeah, very important. Mhm.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So I think that's the same thing you're doing, having perpetrators become activists and
Mhm.
also champions, but also very big allies in the fight against gender-based violence. So that takes me to want to find out who are your targeted population in all of this work that you do? I mean, aside women who and men, maybe, who else are the other groups that you work with?
Survivors,
Yeah.
survivors of human trafficking. When they come back, we have a hub, or we used to have a hub in Limbe, and one of the survivors opened a small working place. And when they come back, they would register at her place, and she would send them to me, and we would discuss what their next step can be. And from there, we worked. And in 2018, I was lucky to have some work with the Hilton Hotel, and they were ready to take survivors. So we recruited the returnees from that hub, and they took 5 of the girls for training at the Hilton Hotel. And they were trained for 9 months with some money that the Hilton headquarters gave me, in 900,000. I just sent it to Hilton. And at the end of their training, they were asked to apply to work at the Hilton. Actually, 3 of them were retained until the outbreak of COVID, when the hotels were very badly hit, and they came running back to me. Unfortunately, only one is working there now. The others ran away, some got pregnant again, and some went back to their traffickers, and that was a hit on me. But others, on the other hand, used some of the money they were able to raise to start businesses. But I'm in contact with them. I still keep the group, and I know where actually some of them are. And if we had a better situation in the country, I just think that they would be around here doing something more profitable. So to answer your question, I work with IDPs, internally displaced persons. There are so many of them still around hanging, teenage mothers and school dropouts. That's the composition of the groups I work with. And I must say that many of them are succeeding in many of the work they are doing. There are small businesses around, and we make a business plan together, and we see how much they can use to start a business. Usually it has worked, and that's why I keep on. I'm not giving up, even though I'm using just the little stipend that I can manage to keep. And I have free will donors who support me when they hear of my work. They give me a little money to go about. So I'm not stopping until I just cannot do it.
Yeah.
And I'm doing it happily.
Yeah. That's amazing work you're doing then. I mean, it's really not easy to, get into this area of work and sustain it, because there is one thing about getting into work like this, and it's another thing to sustain your actions and interventions where you've been
Yeah.
standing tall for a while now. It's saddening to know that survivors even get back to the perpetrators and do not really stay on track for help and support. And many times, this also constitutes um, the sort of challenges we face in this work generally. So that takes me to the point I would like to ask. Generally, what are some of your challenges which you experience doing this work? What are some of your challenges generally?
Uh, I think the hackneyed word finance. You heard enough of that we don't have money to do the work. That one is an eternal problem. So there will always be that challenge that, like, when you have a woman in front of you who has nothing and you have nothing to give her, it breaks my heart. That still remains a big challenge. When you give her 10,000 CFA, knowing that she needs 50,000, I mean, you don't sleep well and you start thinking, how do I make up for this? And the second challenge is that many of them leave the work. Sometimes they feel that, after all, if I compare them to, I would be better off in Kuwait than being in Cameroon. That's where I give the survivor 50,000 francs. Talking about this girl who had the interest to do some business. And that day, she decided that she would go to Douala and buy shoes. And she was in Douala till 9 p.m. and I started getting worried. Then she came back and took pictures of so many shoes that she had bought for 30,000 francs and was going to Limbe to sell. And I was as excited as she was. And I just shared the pictures and we were talking about it. She had been living on the streets of Limbe. You would not imagine. When this one of the survivors found her and took her home, and the business was thriving very much, then I kept following her up. Go for refill, go for refill, go for refill. As soon as she got money, she disappeared. And she told me she was in Nigeria trying to do nursing. Then she told me another story. Then another story. Then I never heard from her. As we speak, I don't know where Chanceline is. Those are the challenges we face, but such are very few. And some of them tell us that the life there was better because they were in another country and they could jump from one place to the other. But we have come to realize that many of them get killed. They just die. So I just pray that she's not one of them who has disappeared through that kind of terrible violence. I'm just hoping that someday she will reappear and I will meet her. So our wish is that the state should give us a hand. In no amount can be small to help a survivor. The IDPs are so wretched, but we have to go sourcing for old clothes from women, old children's clothes to give them. And every once in a while, that's what I do. I'm sure when I finish with the workshop that's coming on, I will share some pictures with you. You see the kind of things that we do when we bring them over to do workshops and seminars. We're doing Pink October, sensitizing women on breast cancer, which is not part, it's also part of GBV though, but nobody would bring violence in such a way. But through that, I got to get another idea about cancers. Why is it that it's so prevalent nowadays? And looking at it, we have come to see that young girls are into high fashion, copying on social media, putting eyelashes, putting long nails, which they have to use ultraviolet rouge to dry the nails, which bring in cancer cells on their bodies. So well, you should know that as working with WHO, that so 2 days ago when I met with some young people, I said they should stop being violent on their bodies. So GBV can also be self-inflicted. So we are looking at it from all the angles that we think are useful or can help them. Because if cancer is prevalent, if kidney problem has become everybody's thing until you have 8-year-old children, what is the cause? There's some amount of violence going in there. So we are now looking at violence on a very large scale and then narrowing it down to the women and narrowing it down to human beings doing it on their bodies. Girls perfusing themselves to get brighter colors, to get bigger breasts, to get bigger buttocks. Those are still cancer stimulating agents that they don't know. So talking about GBV isn't just about killing women, maltreating, abusing women and men and so forth, but we have even violating or being violent on the individual's bodies. That's another dimension. But as a teacher, my mind wanders and I see much more to it than is otherwise perceived. And I use every opportunity to sensitize in my own little way. And I think those who here have heard and have seen a young girl now undergoing treatment for eye problem because on installing eyelashes, something dropped into her eye. And for several weeks now, they've been trying to treat her and she's going blind. That's another form of violence, self-inflicted. So, every day things are kind of morphing. One thing morphs into the other. And we will not stop. We'll keep talking. We'll keep sensitizing. We'll keep advocating.
Thank you so much for sharing, though. Thank you so much for highlighting all of this. So maybe we take it again through. What are some prevalent gender-based violence types aside human trafficking, which you've observed over time?
Well, we have sex trafficking and we have labor trafficking. And labor trafficking is so predominant and prevalent that even mothers do it without knowing. Labor comes in the sense that instead of looking for someone whom you can pay, you take a sister's child to live with, and you don't treat that child well, and that child works almost like a slave. And then sex trafficking comes in when the girl is sent to work as a sex trafficker, as a sex doll, and giving the money back to the pimp or whoever is in charge of her. And we have seen this so much in society. And in most cases, those victims never talk. They only talk at the last minute when so much damage has been done. You know, and besides all of this, they are not properly treated. All of them suffer a lot. They come back with diseases. Because sometimes they use animals on them. Dogs are used on humans and they are infected by the time we receive them as survivors. So the types will always be there, and new ones, as I say, come on every day.
Okay. It's
And,
it's
and I just
saddening.
wish, yeah, I just wish
Yeah.
it would stop.
Yeah. So, maybe before we wrap it up for today, are you able to share some success stories which you've at least documented throughout your work?
Yes, there are. There are. When I look around me and I see the women who have passed through my organization, who are now established and they come to visit me. I think I've had more than 100 women that I can really say this group. I have a group in Bukwango who are now all independent, selling food. One actually just started with in 2018 when I met her. She had lost everything in a village through the crisis, and when she came to see me, I gave her 15,000 and told her to start by making hot drinks with uh, gateau. You know gateau.
Yeah, Burns,
What
yeah.
they call gateau in Cameroon?
Yeah.
Yes, just making chocolates and selling during the rainy season, and people would come. She just got a few cups and a flask, and today she boasts of a whole restaurant. That's a great success, and she
Yeah.
has an Android phone. You know, she takes pictures and sends to me. She didn't even have a phone before. And to know that she has passed through us and is doing so well. And some of the successes come from the fact that we've become a referrer. Others who have succeeded refer difficult cases or such survivors to us, that why don't you go and see this mommy? Like the cancer case I received 3 weeks ago. So we are not giving up. We'll be taking it one day at a time, and hopefully someday we'll have money to reach out to many more.
I know.
Mhm.
I know. That's good. That's a good one. So before we separate, what will you say to a survivor of gender-based violence listening to you out there? And what information do you have for the general public?
I would like to tell whoever is listening to this to get involved, because every little bit counts. You may think that you need 50,000 to help somebody. No, even with 10,000 francs, I've had women start businesses with 10,000 francs. And how was that? I said, go to Munya market, buy bananas, green bananas, and pears for 3,000, raw pears. Buy in a basin. You will get it for at least 3,000. And within 1 week, the bananas will be ripe. And you'll be selling them. What you bought for 3,000 could give you another 3,000. And if they got too ripe, you could buy cassava and do banana, Accra banana. And while you are selling, your children will be eating that pear, that banana, and so on. And they have grown to become big fruit sellers just because of the idea we gave them initially. So the money is never small. And many people fear to engage just because they think what they have is too little. And we should be one another's keeper in our communities. Don't give a blind eye to somebody who is suffering, thinking that we are not concerned about the person. We should have empathy. Empathy is what has kept me going, and I will still empathize no matter what, because I know it could be me, but God has brought me out of it, and I'm on the other side. So just giving a hand to that person to come over to your side is what we need to do in our community, in our towns, and everywhere we find ourselves. And to the survivors, going back to your own mess doesn't help you. Striving to have a better livelihood than what you were before is what works. If you've been there before, don't go back to it. Because those survivors who are going back into trafficking, into living with that man who almost killed you, he would not change. If he tried the first time and failed, the next time he will. Because love should also have eyes and ears. You should be able to see the love that is genuine, and to hear the love declaration that is genuine, and to keep off. And one other thing is that many survivors should be educated. They should be able to read and get information about their communities. Many people don't listen. The lady we are following up on cancer has never heard of Pink October, has never heard of anything on the radio, has never. We should look for information. Information is the greatest teacher. Listen to the news. I usually tell my students, don't leave your home, don't leave your room without listening to Radio Boya News. It tells you about Boya. Listen to a national news. It tells you about Cameroon. And then listen to BBC. It tells you about the world. So before you go out there, you are armed and you know exactly where the trouble is, that you don't run into danger. So communication is one thing that everybody needs to have, to be able to know where you are stepping your feet, at what time, at what hour, and you don't just go out ignorantly when there is a fire burning and you run into that fire.
Thank you so much, Doug. So, thank you very much. Are there any final words from you before we close it up for today?
I can only thank you for identifying me and inviting me to share the little I have, and for knowing that we are still there, our hands are still on the plow, and we are not turning back. We just pray that what we share here should go a long way to edify somebody, to increase somebody, to give more insight on GBV and what it takes. That GBV is not just beating up somebody, there is more to it than that. And that when they get to know about it, you'll see that there is more to it than just slapping somebody or just maltreating somebody. There is so much. And we need to discuss, we need to partner, we need to share what we have with our community. Be part of your community. People should be part of their communities. And when you share, more people get to know about it. I share in the churches, I share in my village group, I share with my students, whoever comes to visit me. If it's the month of October, I'm talking about cancer. If it's the month of November, now we are talking about prostate cancer, and we are talking about 16 days of activism, human rights, and all whatnot. The world is full of stories, and we should be part of that world and part of the stories. Thank you very much, Marita, for reaching out, and I wish you well in your work.
Thank you so much, Doug, for your time, and thank you for sharing this very rich experience of yours. And I agree with you in the hope that those who are going to listen, or those who are listening to us, right after this, will be able to make concrete decisions that will better their lives moving forward, but also contribute in the fight against gender-based violence, which has eaten so deep into our society's fabric. So this is looking like a larger scale emergency. This is also a call for many founders out there to look deep into funding grassroots organizations that are pushing through with this work. Now, to anyone out there looking for partnerships and collaboration in the southwest region of Cameroon, Dr. Beatrice is available and willing and available to partner and collaborate with you, especially as she works in the area of trafficking in persons, women's economic empowerment, and far-wide awareness raising, active and partial referrals. So if you're looking to partner and collaborate, she's readily available to do this with you. So to you listening, once again, Marita Nanking has been my name. Our guest has been Dr. Beatrice Titanji. And thank you so much for listening through. And we look forward to engaging with you in our subsequent programs. Thank you so much. And it's bye from this end.